So today we're going to be talking about the first issue of a brand new series that Marvel just put out called Avengers Twilight. Right off the bat, this story is kind of a weird combination of popular storylines spiritually, Civil War and Young Avengers and Old Man Logan and even Days of Future Past kind of a little bit. When you're looking at it, at its core, this story is kind of Old Man Logan for Captain America, and I promise you it's better than it sounds. It's not just the same thing again. This is actually really unique in its own way, because where Old Man Logan was kind of destruction and wastelands and tragedy and gore and gruesomeness, this one is kind of a dystopia in that it's more glory and glamour, but it's the politics and the control of the government through the media and how propaganda is still kind of weaponized against people to take ideas like the Avengers that people love and kind of pervert them to further agendas and gain more control over people. And so we start off this series immediately with an old Steve Rogers, and just from his bedroom you can kind of tell what kind of Steve we're looking at here. You can see a lot of Avengers and Captain America memorabilia on the walls. He's hunched over, he's tired, he doesn't look like he has much going for him. Frankly, he looks a little bit miserable, so it's kind of got a Mr. Incredible thing going for it right off the bat, and where it's just kind of like constantly trying to relive the glory days a little bit, because clearly they've left. He has a wife named Rosa in this future, which is really surprising. I thought they would just go with like an older Sharon Carter, but I guess not. So Rosa brings him some coffee, and he's like automatically thinking in his head like, oh, she's bringing this to me to try and be nice and make me, you know, make sure I forget what day it is. And then he says it's August 13th. I don't get to forget. So automatically we're starting on a very specific day. We don't know why. We don't know what he's supposed to not forget, but it doesn't seem good. We then see him out and about walking, and a fan kind of comes up to him, and he thinks she's gonna ask for a selfie, and so he asks if she wants one. And weirdly, she's like taken back by this idea, like that she would ever ask Captain America for a selfie. And he goes, oh, sorry, my mind's not what it used to be. So is it bad? Like, is Captain America not looked at in a good light? Why would asking for a selfie be so weird? You know, keep that in mind. And then Steve actually meets with an older Luke Cage, who's old and wrinkly and hunched over just like he is. And they start walking through the park talking about something called H-Day, which is apparently today, August 13th, and eventually stumble upon an older Matt Murdock sitting on the bench. All the old timers are, you know, even though they're not superheroes anymore, seemingly, they're still meeting up, still keeping in touch, which is nice. So it kind of seems like it's maybe not as tragic as Old Man Logan, which is good. These heroes still exist, they're just not heroes anymore. According to Steve, Matt reopened his legal clinic, so he's still taking on cases, but Matt says that he's overrun because of something called the Watcher Act, where people just aren't allowed to use phones. If you're using like an iPhone basically and you're trying to record with it, apparently that's a crime now. So he's very cranky about that. He's not liking, you know, a lot of the laws that are being passed in this. And, you know, this conversation is kind of nice and kind of enlightening because, you know, we get to see that Matt is still doing his thing. Steve mentions that he doesn't have the super soldier serum in his body anymore, so he instead just volunteers at the food bank and the veteran center, and apparently tried to run for office, but he failed because voters just did not want him, surprisingly. So back to that girl, apparently, you know, maybe people aren't so fond of Captain America nowadays, is what that seems to suggest. And also the Watcher Act, I forgot to mention, the whole camera phone thing, that's why she was so taken aback by the idea of having a selfie, because she thought basically that he was insinuating that she would be a criminal or something like that. So we're seeing that this world is just very, very different from where we're at now. It apparently seems a lot more like controlling. And then Luke also mentions that he has his own thing, but he's kind of vague about it, you know, about what he's doing these days. But basically the main point here is that all of these old heroes are still kicking, still meeting up, and even though they can't really be superheroes anymore because they don't have the bodies for it, they're still helping out in whatever ways their bodies can handle, which is really, really cool. But again, it kind of prompts the question, what does the superhero community look like now? You know, if none of these guys are doing it, if they're not in touch with other people that are doing it, is it just people aren't superheroing anymore, or what's going on there? And then interestingly enough, picking up off of that, we see that they're actually being surveilled, these three. The government, the FBI, whoever, it just has a camera floating there looking at them, listening to what they're saying. Him getting with Luke and Matt like this seems like it's a regular thing, you know, like it's routine for these guys to just occasionally meet up and hang out and talk. And if you go a couple pages back, interestingly enough, I noticed this myself, if you go a couple pages back and look in one of the panels where Steve is walking just amongst everyday people, you can see one of these cameras that looks exactly like that following Steve on his way there. So clearly whoever is watching them, whatever government person is like keeping an eye on them, keeping track of them, they must know that these three do meet up regularly like this just to catch up, and they know to surveil them. Someone doesn't want these guys getting together and doing much more than what they're doing right now, so they're keeping their eyes on them. We don't know why. Is the government actively trying to prevent them from being superheroes again? What's going on? After his meetup with Matt and Luke, Steve goes home back to his wife Rosa. They're just kind of hanging out, talking, and on the TV, an advertisement for a new docuseries called Read Between the Lines starts playing and suggests this idea that Red Skull might have actually been a good guy that was wrongfully stopped and thwarted by Captain America. They kind of push this idea that he was a deep cover agent trying to stop Hitler and the Nazis, and it kind of paints Captain America as the bad guy that stopped and killed Red Skull, who is trying to stop Hitler. And you know, obviously rightfully this riles Steve up, because how the hell did that get greenlit? How can this is literally like fascism on the TV, trying to defend and enable this literal Nazi, this huge supervillain. Being frustrated, Steve just has to walk away from the TV, just saying no one cares about the truth anymore. And you know, you can't really blame him, because it seems like that's the case. We cut away to some news footage of a fake Avengers team that is being powered by Stark Tech, and we find out that this is courtesy of Tony Stark and Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, Iron Man and Wasp's son, Jimmy, who supplies these fake Avengers and the government and seemingly the FBI with Stark Tech to create this martial law type society, all founded by like a Frankenstein version of Iron Man's company. And you know, apparently like this Jimmy, he's less of a bad reflection of Tony Stark and more of just like a kind of a mustache twirling corrupt villain almost, you know, because he's working with the government. But also a couple pages later, we see that they give Jimmy word that Captain America needs to be talked down. And then moving forward, Steve actually makes a big move to go onto a talk show to combat the idea that the Read Between the Lines docuseries was pushing. So he's not just taking this lying down, he's not just sitting it out. And conveniently, Jimmy joins the talk show and basically hijacks the interview, kind of taking it off the subject of the docuseries and more just trying to take it to a sensitive place that he knows is gonna like push Steve over the edge. And so what Jimmy does is he circles all the way back to H-Day, and we start to figure out what it is. And I'm so sorry to do this, but because I don't want this video to get too long, we'll have to find out what that is in the next video. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, and comment your thoughts on this story down below. Do you think this has potential to be the next Old Man Logan or not? Let me know why or why not. But yeah, that is all for this video, and until next time, I will see you later. Thanks for watching.